This session is about Gherkin basics. Cucumber, as we discussed, it is a test management tool used to manage the test cases, test data. Internally, Cucumber uses Gherkin language. So Gherkin is a language used to write test cases in given, when, and then format. Karate also uses the same format, given, when, and then. This session covers how to write a test case, more precisely how to transform a manual test case into Gherkin format. So let's take a manual test case example. Take an example of any e-commerce website such as Flipkart or Amazon, where you select few items, add to a cart and buy them. So divide an application into multiple modules. When you write a manual test case, you divide an application into multiple functional modules based on your convenience, based on the any criteria that you take. Similarly, let's take one module in the e-commerce website, cart. So each module will be placed in one file that is called as a feature file. So these are again the keywords that are used in Cucumber and Gherkin format. So the test cases you need to write in one file, is it? So that file name you can specify as per the module that you picked, but the extension should be .feature file. For example, cart is the functional module that we are going to pick. So you need to create a new file with name cart module dot feature. So this name is dynamic. It depends on which module you are working on. So you can give whatever you want to give based on the module that you pick. But the extension should be .feature file. Then only the Cucumber will understand, okay, this is a feature file in which there are test cases being maintained in Gherkin format. So once you create a file with name of your functional module .feature, you can start writing the test cases. So the first line of any feature file, you created a feature file in your project. Let me scroll this down. Yeah. So once you create this .feature file, open the file, and the first line of any feature file should be name of the feature. Be cautious about the indentation, I mean the space, and also the uppercase and lowercase, right? So the feature name has to start with an uppercase F, and there should be a colon after feature, and there should be a space. After this, you can give whatever the name you feel like giving for the function module. Let me give like cart module test scenarios. Right. So then I'll start writing the scenarios. So each test scenario should start with the keyword scenario. Again, the starting letter is a capital, and we need to specify a colon after the scenario and give a space. Then write the test case name or test scenario name. Log into e-commerce website with below credentials. Or with valid credentials. So this is the name of my test scenario. Okay. So first try to write the manual scenarios. So the scenario as I mentioned, it's login. What are the test steps? Enter valid username and password. Okay, before that, launch the URL, enter valid username and password, click on login, verify, home page is displayed. So this is how we write the manual test case or manual test steps for a scenario. Is it? Similarly, cart. So the scenario for cart is verify, add to cart functionality. Search for the item in the search box. Then you select the item that you want to add to cart. Select the item. Click on add to cart and then verify the item is added to the cart successfully. So these are two manual test cases. So these are two manual test cases that are written for the cart. So first scenario is to log into the application and the second is add the item to the cart. So these are the manual steps which are pretty simple. Any manual tester should understand this, right? So now transforming this into Gherkin format, Gherkin language format is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Just we need to append given, when and then. So understand this. There are three keywords that you need to write. So let's take this scenario, log into e-commerce website. So as I mentioned, given. So after the scenario, you should start with the keyword given. Given. So given is always the precondition or the initial data setup or the initial test steps that needs to be taken care of before actually you start your execution. Okay, let me repeat it. Given is basically the precondition or pre-data setup or pre-steps that need to be done before you start your actual execution. For example, logging to the e-commerce website. So to log into a e-commerce website like Amazon, what is needed? You should launch the browser. You should launch the URL. So these are the two steps which needs to be taken care before you actually do something and log in. Correct. So what I'll do, I'll paste this launch URL in the given. Given launch the URL. Then when. So when keyword is used to indicate the user actions that are performed to achieve a specific result. I'll repeat again. When keyword is used with the user actions that needs to be performed to achieve a desired result. So in this login scenario, what are the user actions? User needs to enter username and password. User needs to click on login, right? So I'll copy this, enter valid username and password. I'll paste it here, and when he needs to again click on login also. So these two are the user actions that needs to be done in order to log into this particular application. So there is a repetition of when. So in these cases, you don't have to repeat the when again and again. You just repeat that with the and conjunction. So it implies that when user enters username and password and he clicked on the login button and something else if it is there. So that is with the when. And then coming to then. So then is your actual validation, the expected result in your manual test case. What is that you are expecting out of this particular scenario? What is that you are trying to validate? All those validations and expected results will come under the then section. So then what should happen? User should log in successfully, right? Let me write that. Then user should log in successfully, then home page is displayed. So here again then is repeated twice, so I'll replace the then with the end. Right? The simple manual test case, we transformed that into a Gherkin language. So this is nothing but the Gherkin language, pretty simple and pretty straightforward. All you need to understand is the keywords, when to use and where to use. So I'll repeat the keywords once again. So till now we have created one file with an extension of .feature file, and you give the name of the file related to your functional module, either cart module or login module or payment module or whatever it could be. Based on your functional module, you define that feature file, but group the test cases which makes sense and meaningful to you. So there is no hard and fast rule like you have to have only these number of modules in your project, or you can't group these test cases, but group them in a meaningful way as per your requirement. So then have the manual test cases ready with you, understand the test cases, then transform them into the feature file that is created. The first line of the feature file should be starting with the feature name, starting with the keyword feature, colon and a space, and give the name of the feature you want to specify. Then the scenario description, what you are verifying in the scenario, again the scenario keyword, colon and a space. Then transform the steps into given, when and then. Given is your precondition, when is the user action, then is the expected result. So writing the Gherkin test cases for the second scenario. Verify add to cart functionality. So the scenario keyword, colon space, add to cart, use case. So in add to cart, so you will okay, let me write the given the item is searched and the item is displayed on the page when user selects the item and user adds the item to the cart So these two are like your input conditions. So the segregation should be in a meaningful way. So if you feel like one step should not go in the given, it should go in then, you can do it. Cucumber won't restrict you from doing it so. But whoever reads this feature file should understand this, and he should interpret that what exactly you are trying to do from this scenario. So these two steps I will include in when. Then is your validation. Item should be added to the cart successfully. So this is one more scenario. See, all these scenarios will be in the feature file. Okay. So I'll add one more scenario. Delete an item from the cart. Okay. Let us add here one more scenario. Given for this scenario also, you should have login to the application successfully. User should be logged into the application successfully, right, before you try to do these operations. So let us have this one line. I'll tell you why I have added on one line here. Let us add it here. So there is one more scenario. Delete item to the cart. So after colon there should be a space. Delete item from the cart. Given item cart contains the items to be deleted when user opens the cart and select the item to be deleted and click on delete, then verify the item is deleted from the cart and verify the item no longer is displayed in the cart. Okay. So this is delete an item. So delete an item, again you need to have given user is logged in successfully to the application. So observe carefully these two scenarios: add to cart use case and delete item from the cart. These are two scenarios. So each scenario will be run individually when you try to run the test cases in Cucumber. Okay. So how Cucumber works and how it handles the scenarios, let us not go there, because we will discuss the same thing in Karate also. Karate also uses the same runner file in similar fashion as in Cucumber. So we will see that in the next sessions. But for now, each scenario is an individual scenario. Assume that. So for the first scenario, add to cart use case, user should log in successfully, right? So I need to include all these steps here. So I just do a Control C, right, typed here. Okay, see here, add to cart use case, give and launch the URL, enter valid username and password. So these steps should be done before actually starting this scenario, correct? Similarly, for the delete also, you should have this user is logged in successfully to the application. So let me copy it. So these steps are performed in this scenario also. So in a feature file, if particular number of steps needs to be performed before every scenario, for example, in our feature file there are 5 scenarios. Okay, let us take this example. This is our feature file, right? So it has 2 scenarios. So each scenario have set a number of steps which are highlighted needs to be executed before your scenario. So these steps are common for all your scenarios. So in that case, there is a way you can have these test cases not repeated every time, but indeed you can place these test cases at one place. Okay, that place we call it as a background. So instead of scenario, you replace that with a background. So background is a precondition or pre-data setup or pre-steps that are executed before every scenario. If there are 10 scenarios, this background will be executed 10 times, one time before every scenario. Got it? If there are 5 scenarios, it will execute 5 times, one time before every scenario. So what happens? The controller comes to this scenario. So before running this scenario, it will check if there is any background in the feature file. If that background is present, before starting this scenario, it will start executing this background and then it will start this scenario. So in this case, what I can do is I can remove these duplicate steps. I don't have to do this because the steps are already present in the background and are will be taken care by the controller. Similarly, delete to cart. Got it? Any questions? Okay. So taking the another example. So scenario and scenario. These are two scenarios. So let us take one more manual example. Okay. So we have taken one example. Add to cart. So in this particular test case, I want to repeat with multiple number of items. For example, for the first time, I want to add one item to the cart, and I want to make sure that the addition is successful. So I'm able to add one item to the cart successfully. Then I'll try to add two items. Then also it should be successful. I want to add 3 items. Then also it should be successful. Then 4. Then 5. So till 5 is my test scope. So I need to execute the same test case 5 times. Okay. So the scenario is what? So I need to write this test case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So generally in manual test cases, you write the test cases 5 times, or you mention in the test data setup like repeat this test case 5 times for item. So verify add to functionality 1 item. Verify add to cart functionality 2 items. Verify add to cart functionality 3 items. Verify add to cart functionality 4 items. Verify add to cart functionality 5 items. So you are trying to repeat this particular test case 5 times. So how do we handle this in Gherkin format, Cucumber, or in Karate? Karate follows the Cucumber, so both are same. So we are gonna see the similar execution of the same test case multiple times in Karate also. So we will be trying to hit the API multiple times using multiple set of data. Okay, let's not go there. So let's see how we can parameterize this test case. Scenario add to cart. Right? Okay, for reference, I will not delete this. I will create one more. Scenario add to cart. So in these cases, you want to repeat this particular scenario n number of times. So you need to use the keyword scenario outline. Scenario outline should go hand in hand with examples. So at the bottom, you need to specify examples, colon, enter. So here I'll make sure that I add one column name. So this is the test data that we should specify. Test data always should be specified in between pipe symbols, and this is called data table. And it should be inside the pipe symbol. So my column name is item. So I want to execute this particular test case with 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, 4 items, and 5 items. And I need to use this parameter somewhere in my test scenario, right? So this is the item. So the parameter that you are going to use should be specified between these arrows and under double quotes. So you need to specify the scenario outline and then examples, and in examples you need to specify in columns. If there is another parameter, you need to specify here. Okay, if there is another parameter, then you need to specify here in the column, like param2, param3, so on. You can specify a number of parameters which are needed for your repetitive execution. Okay, so this test case will be run 5 times. For the first run, it will take the variable item value as 1 here in this step, and for the second run it will take the item value as 2 in this step, and third, fourth, and fifth, and so on. Depends on how many times you want to run. So this is how you achieve the data driven testing in Cucumber in Gherkin format. So this is fine. How about I don't want to execute the test case n number of times, but I need some test data to be provided in my test case. For example, consider this login. Launch the value, enter the username and password. So I'll enter here username is my test data and password is also my test data. So how do I specify my test data in the test case in Cucumber Gherkin? Right? We'll see that as well. So as I mentioned, the test data should always be enclosed between pipe symbols. So where is the test step? Coming here. After the test step, you just enter the pipe symbols and you just give the username value, username and password. What username and what password you want to provide. Got it? So this is how you can specify the test data for a particular test step. So this test data will be applicable only to the test step above it. So it won't be applicable for the entire other steps. So if you want to get this test data, you need to get it from only this step. So this is how you write test cases in Gherkin format inside a feature file. In the similar fashion, you will write inside a feature file the Karate API scripts. Okay, we have seen the Cucumber basics. Okay, tags is one thing. Let's see the tags. When writing the manual test cases, if you have written the manual test cases either in test trail or Ziffer or either an Excel sheet, there will be a column or there will be a field where you need to specify the priority levels, if you remember, and also there will be a flag that you need to specify, like a regression flag or smoke flag or sanity flag, whatever it could be. So these flags and these fields are basically intended to group the test cases based on a specific criteria. For example, regression test case. You specify the flag regression. So it means that you need to execute this test case before your release during the regression testing phase, right? Similarly, there is a way you can group your test cases in a Gherkin scenarios that you have written inside a feature file, and that grouping mechanism can be achieved by using tags. So how do you write a tag? So let me write the tag. Background generally don't have to be grouped under any tag because it will be executed as and when a scenario is picked, correct? So for example, add to cart, simple functionality, and add to cart using multiple items. For example, this take it as delete to cart. Okay. So for example, this delete to cart I want to include under regression. So above the scenario, you need to add the tag with @ symbol. Okay, and @sanity. And I don't want to include that in the smoke test, but I'll include this in the smoke test. So why we need to specify these tags? So when we try to run these test scenarios, by specifying a particular tag, like I specify the tag smoke test, then this particular scenario will be executed, this will not be executed. If I specify regression, then this scenario will be executed and this will not be executed. So tags are basically used when you try to run the scenarios from the runner file. Okay, runner file is something where you start your execution, where you trigger your execution in a cucumber based framework. Similarly, Karate also will have a runner file. You will see that in the next sessions. That runner file, when you try to trigger it, it will look for the tags. If you specify any tags that we want to include, then it will look for the tags and it will pick only those test cases which are grouped under the particular tag, and it will not execute the other scenarios. So that is one way you can achieve the execution run based on tags. So that's all. Gherkin language, we don't have to dig much deep. For Karate API, this should suffice the basics. So I'll repeat what we discussed, what I have shared with you till now. One is, before writing any Gherkin scenarios, okay, firstly you need to write the test scenarios in Gherkin format to work with Karate API automation. So because Karate API automation follows the Gherkin format for writing the API test scenarios. So let's understand the Gherkin language first. So Cucumber also follows the Gherkin format for writing the test scenarios. Firstly, write the manual scenarios for the APIs as well, or for web application if you are working on. Write the test scenarios, like what exactly you want to do, test steps. So divide the test steps into 3 areas. The first area is the input conditions or the pre-data setup or pre-steps that needs to be executed before you do some user actions. So that group is called as given. And the second group, when covers the group of steps that the user do, like the group of user actions. And then next comes the then part. Then is basically the user expected result, what you are expecting out of it. So given, when, and then. Firstly, write the manual test cases and group them in these 3 categories. Then create a feature file with your module name with extension .feature, and the feature file should start with the feature name with the feature keyword and feature name, and you start writing the scenarios with the keyword scenario, given, when, and then. If every scenario in the feature file requires a precondition or group of steps needs to be executed as a precondition, then you group all the steps under one area which you call it as a background. Again, the background should start with the background keyword, B capital, colon, space, the name, and given when and then format again. Next, if you want to run a particular test case n number of times, parameterizing it, repeating the test cases, then you go with scenario outline, colon, scenario name, and examples. Examples will be a table format. Data should be provided inside the pipe symbols, and the first row should be the column names, the parameter name, and the parameter name should be inside the double quotes inside the arrow brackets. And the tags, if you want to group a particular number of test cases under one category, then you specify the tag name in those category to all the scenarios which falls under the category. So tag name will be picked by the runner file. You need to specify the tag in the runner file. So when you try to run the runner file, the test cases which are grouped under a particular tag will be executed and the other scenarios will be omitted from your execution. So practically getting started with a new project, karate project, how you have seen setting up the basic things, the installation and everything. So creating a new project and starting with your first test and the runner file, how you trigger it, you will see that in the next session.